Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux, taking a look at the DRF race of the day for Saturday, September the 2nd. It's the signature race for the entire boutique meet at beautiful Del Mar. Race number 10 is the Grade 1 $1 million Pacific Classic at 1.25 miles. And before we take a look at this excellent field, remember the Labor Day sale ongoing at DRF.com. Get up to 50% off PPs, picks, clock reports, the digital paper, lots more. Learn more and take advantage of this deal. Shop.drf.com. Here's the field for the Pacific Classic. Please scan or click the QR code for Race of the Day access on mobile, which includes free Formulator Pass performances. It's a big field. It's a competitive field, Ashley, and I love the mixture between the 3-year-olds and the older horses.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see them square off. You've mentioned there are some older horses, 6, 7-year-olds in the field, and a lot of 3-year-olds. And with the 3-year-old crop this year, there have been a couple horses that I think have caught people's eyes. One of them being Go Rocket Ride, and even Skinner on the West Coast. I know a lot of people have hyped him up, and everyone will need to bring their A game, though. This is a locked and loaded and stacked field.
And there's also a little bit of pace in here, according to our friends at Timeform US. Here's the pace projector. They're expecting a fast pace after the opening half mile. Arabian Night, one of the 3-year-olds, is super quick out of the gate. The key to the race, in my opinion, Ashley, is the 7 Slow Down Andy, a horse that's shown plenty of speed in the past, but one that has also been able to rate and finish. It'll be interesting to see how much heat he puts on Arabian Night, who I think will have the lead at the half.
I agree. I do think Arabian Night will be on the front end, but you've brought up a great point about Slow Down Andy. He has been forwardly placed, but when you look at his performance last time out, I thought he got a really nice trip just off of it. So a lot will have to do with the break and what other people decide to do, but you have to know that Arabian Night, he's going from the gate. He's done nothing but that in his 3 starts.
Go Rocket Ride, lightly raced, still has a ton of upside potential. Here's his win in the Haskell last time out, and Mike Smith broke from the rail with this horse, made sure to get him out into the clear on the backstretch. He made a very strong move. He put away Arabian Night, who's in the red cap, tiring towards the inside, and that's a pretty good horse that Go Rocket Ride fends off. Kentucky Derby winner, Mage. Good effort for Go Rocket Ride, considering it was only his 4th lifetime start.
I thought it was a huge effort. Obviously, he took a step forward in terms of figures. You mentioned he had the rail, but he's a horse that I think a lot of us liked looking forward to, towards the first Saturday in May and other Triple Crown races. And he had some setbacks, and to see how he's been able to regroup in his last 2 really big performances. And I think the big thing there is, going 1 mile and 1/8, the way he strided out in the stretch. To me, he looked phenomenal winning the race.
And he looks like he's pace adaptable as well, where if this pace is fast, he can maybe hang back and make a run. And if it's slow, he can stay up close. Richard Mandela, after the Haskell, said, we're going to the Pacific Classic. He wasn't even thinking about the Travers. It's a confident move. It might play off. The number 2 is Katona. He's coming up from Pleasanton, where he scored going 1 mile and 70 yards there in a stakes race. Let's watch Katona's performance, because this is a very powerful last 3/16 of a mile, and he got a respectable 99 buyer.
He had a huge buyer, and he's been able to pop some big numbers in his last couple. I know a lot of them were at Santa Anita, but this ended up being a big field for the $150,000 purse, and I thought it was a good effort. The big thing here, with a lot of these horses, they haven't gone this distance, but he seemed to really like the 1 mile and 70 yards, and he's a horse that they kept him more at 6 furlongs than 1 mile in those most recent starts, but maybe as he gets older and progresses, he does want to go longer.
The number 3 Stiletto Boy is another horse that could add to the pace picture. We've seen him forwardly placed in the past. He's also a bit underrated. He's finished 3rd in a couple of editions of the Pegasus World Cup. He won the big cap earlier this year, going 1.25 miles. And in this race, he stayed relatively close to the pace. And he's able to grind down some nice horses in front of him, including Defunded, who will face yet again on Saturday.
This was a great performance. I really thought Kent DeSormo gave this horse the perfect trip, because prior to that, he was forwardly placed and getting caught, and this gave him the ability to just sit off the pace and make a late run, and he gets up in time. And you can look at his last 2 efforts, and we haven't seen the winner's circle with him, but I'm curious to see him back out in California, him racing out there. And the other thing that I look at, which I'm a big Stiletto Boy fan. I think anyone knows that if they follow me on social media, but my concern with him is, yes, he gets back to California. That's a plus, but Del Mar has not been the kindest to him. He is 0 for 4. He just does have those, minor 3rd place finishes. I'm curious though. We know he can go the distance, but I wonder if Del Mar is really the track that he wants to race on.
Conversely, Delmar has been very kind to the number 4 Tripoli, who won this very race back in 2021. The question is he the same horse right now? His last two races on paper might indicate he's not, but he had some little traffic issues in each of those starts. And if he gets the right pace setup, maybe he can run along late for a piece at a price at the very least.
And he's had some gaps. You can see kind of in the last year how he's been managed a couple of minor gaps. I would say, at least last time out, you've alluded to the traffic problems. I thought he raced okay based on the trip that he got. Maybe he can take another step forward. I think to be competitive for the top spot, it would be more than just a step forward at this point. But John Sadler, very familiar with this horse and is the one that got him into the winner's circle not too long ago.
Bob Baffert, of course, has the 3-year-old in Arabian Night. He has one of the better older horses in Southern California with the number 5 Defunded. This is a multiple Grade 1 stakes winner. Let's watch his win in the Hollywood Gold Cup at Santa Anita, 2 starts back, going a mile and a quarter. This coming on the heels of a very impressive performance in the Californian. I know he was 1-5 in the Californian, but he also missed the break that day and he won very easily. In this race, he got right up close to the pace and he gets it done.
Yeah, this was a really good effort from him back in April. And to see where he go on from this is at a mile and eighth. He goes to a mile and a quarter, and he finally is able to get a good effort at a mile and a quarter in terms of a win. He had been a horse that I felt like if you watched his prior efforts at a mile and a quarter, it was just a little too far for him. And I think to see how he was able to take a step forward from the win that we showed, that was a positive sign. Now he had a couple months off and he just didn't fire last time out in the San Diego handicap. Maybe he's got excuses. It's Bob Baffert. I have to think he knows where this horse is right now going into this race. And then you see the workout tab, and it is loaded with bullet drills. So I'm of the opinion that Defunded's probably sitting on a really big race, but there are a lot of horses that come in here with, I think, efforts last time out that are just slightly better.
The number 6 is Order and Law. He's coming off a graded stakes victory at the rare mile-and-a-half dirt distance in North America. This is the Cougar the second. And Order and Law showed fine tactical speed in this race. He attacks at a big price on the turn, and he's just better than these horses. Now, he only earned a 90 buyer speed figure. He's going to have to do a lot better against this group, and he's taking a big step up in class.
He is, but Delmar is a track that's worked out well for him. He actually recorded his career best buyer of a 96 there. Still, we know horses here have triple digit buyers in the field. And it's interesting, the connections claimed him, and it took him a while to get him going. And last time out at a mile and a half, as you mentioned, not a distance you have many opportunities to run at. He had tried it in the past and wasn't able to win, but maybe he's just better now. Maybe they figured out some things with him. And I actually do like the last time out with that being the graded stakes race. He finally raced without Lasix for the first time in a while, and he raced well.
I'm a big fan of the 7 Slow Down Andy, who's closing in on millionaire status, a graded stakes winner at 2, a graded stakes winner on both dirt and turf at 3. And he's only had 2 starts this year, but I think they've been building blocks to lead up to a good performance in the Pacific Classic. What chance really did he have in the Metropolitan Handicap against the mighty Cody's Wish in his first start off of a lengthy layoff? But he took a big step forward last time out, went second in the San Diego, and was close to a pretty quick pace in doing it.
He looked really good last time out at Del Mar. And, he's got a little bit of second-itis there locally, but it was a very good performance to see him kind of handle the older horses you mentioned in the Metropolitan. What shot did he really have? He was coming off the bench. We know who he faced in there. The Cody's Wishes, Zandon, and then White Abari, and we know what success he had just about a month ago. So to me, he's intriguing. He's lightly raced. He's a 4-year-old. He's a 4-time winner. I think there's a lot of upside to him. And when we showed the pace projections, going a mile and a quarter can be tough. But I almost think if you're the sort of horse that can be pretty close to the pace and settle, maybe you're going to get the better trip than others in here.
If the pace is hot, it could fall right into the hands of the number 8, Senor Buskador, coming off a victory in the local prep, the San Diego. Let's watch that race back on July 29th. Now, remember, this race is only at a mile and a 16th, but he has a long way to come in the stretch. He did get the right setup. You're going to see Slow Down Andy finish second here, but I like the way Senor Buskador finished this race off. The major question is, will he have this same sort of kick at this longer distance?
That's going to be a huge question. His prior race at Santa Anita in the Gold Cup was going a mile and a quarter, and he didn't get that same pace set up, and he didn't get that perfect trip. He got a really good trip here, and he was able to clear on the outside. And loved to see him how he kicked on in the stretch. He was full of run, and even Slow Down Andy looked like he was going to hang around a little bit tougher than he ended up doing in the end. But this is arguably his career best race. He went off at a big price in there, and I like the way he's been managed as well. It's going to be interesting to see him go back to a mile and a quarter. But sometimes when you see the horses also shorten up, excuse me, Dan, then stretch back out, it can help them.
Hopes were always high for the 9 Arabian Night, the $2.3 million auction purpose, and he sure looked good in his first 2 starts, winning the Grade 3 Southwest in only his second lifetime appearance, stretching out to a route and having to handle a sloppy track. Now, he did shake loose on the lead in that race, and then he went away. He missed the entire Triple Crown campaign. Maybe he just needed the Haskell. I know he got bet hard that day. John Velasquez showed his speed. He kept him way off of the rail. He was a little bit tired at the end, but it's funny watching the gallop out. He galloped out past everybody.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of he needed a race. That was a long layoff for him. He was going to take a little bit of a stretch out in distance as well, and he was on the front end. That's his go-to, and that's what he's probably going to do, as we said, when this race comes around on Saturday. But I expect him to be a bit sharper. Now he's had the 5 weeks in between the races, or just over that, and his effort overall, though, was not bad.
Well, the number 10 Paroli has never won a stakes race. He sure came close in the Hollywood Gold Cup 2 starts back. I really loved the ride Kent DeZormo gave him. He got right up close to that moderate pace. He fought on hard to be second to Defunded. He was only beaten a length. And you can give him an excuse for his most recent start going the mile, because breaking from the inside post, he just missed the start. He was running at the end, but he just had too much ground to make up.
At least he was able to make up ground. Some horses, if they don't get the trip that they're used to, they're not unable to do so. But he's a horse that he can be a little bit closer to the pace. He can close from off of it. So I still think it was a good effort. Now, again, second off the layoff, you'd expect him to improve. But it's funny when you go down the page. He's only had one graded stakes competition try, and that was the only grade 1 under his belt, and he ran well. So I don't want to read into his numbers too much, because besides that, he's only been basically in the high 80s in terms of buyer speed figures. But he seemed to really like the mile and a quarter 2 back.
Completing the field is the number 11 Skinner, who's still eligible for a non-winners of 2 life race. But if you followed his career, you know the ability is there. The breakthrough performance might be Saturday. We've been waiting for it for a long time. Here's his last race, the Los Alamitos Derby, where he caught a sharp Baffer-trained runner in Reincarnate who has a lot of speed. Skinner likes to rally from the back of the pack, and I thought he was very game to get up for second here. He's been knocking on the door, to hate to use that cliche, but that's what he's been doing. If he gets the right pace setup, I still think he has a lot of upside.
I think he has upside, and I do think, based on what we've seen so far, a mile and a quarter should be no problem for him. I don't necessarily love post 11 looking at some of his efforts, because sometimes he's been shuffled too far back. Other times he's been able to get an okay position, but he's going to have to make some sort of a move, I think, early on, at least to secure a good position. So that's kind of the tough thing with post 11, but curious to see how he'll perform, and really curious to see what the tote action will be on him, because I know he's a horse that a lot of people have been waiting to kind of see where he'll come up next, and he's come up in a tough spot. But as I said, the distance should be fine for him.
10-1 on the morning line for the number 11 Skinner. Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. It's top pick time for the Pacific Classic. It's a sensational edition, and we're both going with 3-year-olds. Go Rocket Ride looked so good in the Haskell last time out. I just think he's going to work out another good trip.
I agree. I think he's also versatile in the sense that he can be close to it. He can kind of adjust himself. And I'm not sure we've even seen him really be able to close from off of it. But what we saw in the Haskell stretch run, I think the possibilities are endless for him. But we're both going with 3-year-olds. And that's a tough call. But you go with Arabian Night here, who maybe had an excuse last time out.
He might have, simply because it was the layoff. And I'm not saying it was a speed battle, because he was up with a 60-1 shot. And we saw Go Rocket Ride just run by him. But I think you made a very good point. I think he needed the race. And I think in this race, he's just being sent out of there. And we'll see how far he can go. But I think that he has worlds of talent. 17584 Ashley, 91874 me. It's the Grade 1 Pacific Classic. Best of luck.